Hello everyone. Today I will be discussing to you my report, The Nature of Sin. On this report, we will be talking about this kind of objectives. First, relate the doctrine of sin to other doctrines and explain why it is difficult to discuss sin in contemporary society. To identify and describe three methods for discussing sin and to affirm the necessity of God's word in understanding sin. Thirdly, to examine the eight biblical terms that are used to characterize sin and to expand our understanding of sin and its nature, and to identify and explain the results of sin from four biblical words, and to examine three common approaches to understanding the essential nature of sin, and to synthesize a definition. First, we will be going the interrelationship between the doctrine of sin other doctrines, wherein doctrine of sin is both extremely important and much disputed. It is important because it affects and is also affected by many other areas of doctrine. And our understanding of humanity also bears on our understanding of sin. And when it comes in our doctrine of salvation will be strongly influenced by our understanding of sin. And fourth one, one's understanding of sin is also important because it has a marked effect upon one's view of the nature and style of one's ministry. And lastly, our approach to the problems of society will also be governed by our view of sin. And we will be now going to the difficulty of discussing sin, if discussing sin. First, as important as the doctrine of sin is, it is not an easy topic to discuss in our day for several reasons. First reason, sin, like death, is an unpleasant subject. We do not like to think of ourselves as bad or evil persons. Second, it is difficult to discuss sin is that to many people it is a foreign concept to them. And many people are unable to grasp the concept of sin as an inner force, an inherent condition, and a controlling power. When it comes to the methods of studying sin, the topic of sin can be approached and studied in a number of ways. First way is the empirical or inductive approach. One can either observe the actions of contemporary human beings or examine the deeds of biblical persons and then draw conclusions regarding their behavior and the nature of sin. Second, the paradigm method. With this, we could select one type of sin and set it up as our basic model of sin. We would then analyze other types of sin with reference to this basic model, regarding them as varieties of elucidations of our paradigm. Thirdly, the third approach begins by noting all of the biblical terminology for sin, wherein a wide variety of concepts will emerge. These concepts are then examined in order to discover the essential element of sin. This basic factor may then be used as our focal point as we endeavor to study and understand the nature of specific instances of sin. And when it comes to the terms for sin, first, we will be discussing about the terms emphasizing causes of sin, wherein we will be discussing the word ignorance, wherein these errors or ignorances apparently were such that the people were reliable to punishment for them. This was willful. This was a willful ignorance. The people could have known the right course to follow, but chose not to know it. Second is error. More abundant are reference to sin as error, that is the human tendency to go astray, to make mistakes. In most cases, however, what the Bible terms error simply ought not to have occurred. The person should have known better and was responsible to so inform himself. And inattention. In classical Greek, the word parakoe has the meaning to hear amiss or incorrectly. Second term is the terms emphasizing the character sin, wherein first, missing the mark. This sin is always sin against God. Sin is it is failure to hit the mark he has set, his standard or perfect love of God and perfect obedience to him. Second one is irreligion. Writer Smith summarized whenever anomia is used, the concept of law and judgment are present, and in the characteristics and more numerous instances, the reference is not to the Jewish law, but to anything and everything that any man knows that God has commanded. Thirdly, transgression. They always carry the implications that some law has been transgressed. Consequently, Paul can say, and where there is not law, there and where there is no law, there is no transgression. And fourth one, inequity or lack of integrity. In the former case, lack of integrity is seen in failure to fulfill or maintain the just law of God. The later case, lack of integrity is seen in the disunity in the individual, a discrepancy between present and past behavior or character. In the word fifth, rebellion. All persons are assumed to be in a contact with the truth of God, even Gentiles who do not have his special revelation. Failure to believe the message, particularly when openly and especially presented, is disobedience or rebellion. Anyone who disobeys a king is considered an enemy. Likewise, the multitudes who disobey God's word. Perversion. In here, it emerges the condition or character of the sinner. The one who sins becomes twisted or distorted, as it were. The true nature for which and in which the human was created is disturbed. This is both the result and the cause of sin. Abomination. The term about abomination indicates that these sins are not simply something that God previously objects to, but that produces revulsion in him. When it comes to the terms emphasizing the results of sin, we will be discussing about the agitation or restlessness. The word resha, which is usually translated to wickedness, is believed to have originally suggested the concept of tossing and restlessness. Evil or badness, it may mean distress or adversity. People may choose to keep God's commandments, in which case good will to come to them, or to disobey, in which the result will be evil. Third, guilt. A wrong has been done to someone, a wrong for which the perpetrator ought to be punished or the victim compensated. The sinner is liable to punishment for offending God. Part one, trouble. Almost always in a moral sense, the sin brings trouble upon sinner. When it comes to essential nature of a sin, a common element running through all these varied ways of characterizing sin is the idea that the sinner has failed to fulfill God's law. Sin is any lack of conformity, active or passive, to the moral law of God. This may be a matter of act or thought or of inner disposition or state. It is failure to live up to what God expects of us in act, thought, and being. With this, we will be discussing about sensuality, wherein sin is the tendency of the lower or physical nature to dominate and control the higher or spiritual nature. This conception, which often assumes that matter is inherently evil, is also prominent in the thought of Augustine, in his case growing of his own struggle with sensuality. Selfishness. the choice of self as the choice of self as the supreme end, which constitute the antithesis of supreme love to God. And thirdly, displacement of God, an alternative preferable to the views that sin is basically sensuality or selfishness, is that the essence of sin is simply failure to let God be God. And this is my reference, comes from Millard Erickson. And thank you for listening.